right now. Guys, we are moving into the rapid advance of the holidays. We have Halloween coming up this Thursday. We have Thanksgiving coming after that, then we're right into Christmas, and it just starts to go very quickly. So the month of November, I hate to say it, but for a lot of you and a lot of your classes, will be sort of a mad dash. In this class, not so much. We're going to be moving at a steady pace. What I'm even going to be doing, to give you an opportunity to up your grade in this class, we're going to be covering a couple of chapters as online, open book, open notes quizzes. So what I will be doing is recording some lectures for you. And basically, you'll get a chance to watch the lecture, look at the slides, use your notes, use the PowerPoints I provided. You'll be taking some open book, open notes quizzes. For anybody who didn't do as well as they were hoping on the first test grade, here's a way to bump up your test grade a little bit. Today, however, we're going to be continuing on Chapter 4. If you have not yet submitted the rate of return exercise, it is now overdue. I'll be grading those this week. One of the other things to think about, too, guys, this whole month, we're still doing the stock game. Your stock game is due in the middle of... Hey, how you doing, man? Oh, come on in. Always glad to help. With that being said, guys, if you're working on the stock game independently, keep in mind the first 2 weeks of class, our first 2 weeks of November, you're going to be presenting that. Guys, by show of hands, how many of you made a session at Mentorship Day? Okay. Guys, any thoughts? Thoughts or reactions? Was it worth your time? Yes?
I thought it was pretty cool.
Which sessions did you go to?
I went to the careers and marketing.
And what did you get out of attending that session?
A lot, honestly.
Really?
We had I think there was 8 people in there, and they had a good variety from the places that they worked. One chick worked for the NFL, and then 2 guys
Belinda.
Yeah. And then 2 guys worked for billion-dollar health tech companies.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Belinda in her class had 4 friends, and all of them went on to huge careers. One of them is now a Department of Defense contractor. Belinda works for the NFL. Her other friend, Michelle, who's one of my friends from way back, actually is one of the top people in the IRS. I mean, it's amazing the careers that these folks went on to from little old St. Francis. So, anybody else have a story from a session? Did you go to a session, and did you enjoy it? What session did you go to?
It was something about athletes and business. It was cool. I liked it.
What did you get out of that session?
They were telling us how about teamwork and stuff here, and how good it looks on your resume to have a nice sport. Just stuff like that.
I completely agree. For those of you who are actually for anybody, and this is a question that's not limited to student athletes. How many of you occasionally face challenges in managing your time? It is. It's a very challenging thing. You guys have clubs that you're part of. You have sports you're part of. Everything else. That's showing somebody in the real world you know how to manage your time. For anybody else in here, is there anybody else who went to a session and would like to share their experience? Yes.
I went to marketing and I went to communications. And for communications, there's a guy who works in DC and in the state.
Oh, nice.
And he worked on the City Career Trial.
Oh, wow.
And he won an Emmy. It wasn't for that trial, it was for the shooting. I think it was a newscaster shooting that happened on there.
Uh-huh.
And he was talking about how difficult it is dealing with the stress that happens every day.
And so you got to hear some real world advice from somebody who also just happens to have an Emmy. That's crazy. Well, guys, I have to say, too, I had some experiences with the alumni on Friday as well. One of my favorite sessions was the Light Bulb Moment session, and I really enjoyed my time with those folks. Guys, if you went to Light Bulb Moments on Friday, there was a sign-in sheet, and I'll be giving you extra credits, by the way, if you went to that session. I think it's really a great time that we do this, and it's a great thing that we do Mentorship Day. Here's the secret nobody will tell you when you come into college. Your alumni network wants to help you. By show of hands, how many people here actually got a name and email address from somebody they met that day? Okay, that's okay. It was your first one. From here on out, when you go to Mentorship Day next year, make those contacts. Stay in touch with them over LinkedIn. These people will help you get jobs, period. So I'll be adding extra points to anybody who went to the Light Bulb Moment session. If you have not yet done so, submit your selfie from whatever session you went to under Chapter 19, you'll find a session that says Mentorship Day 2019. That's where I want you to submit yourself in, okay? So put that in. It's an easy 10 points. Please get that done. Guys, if you still need CES credits or you just love Halloween, we're doing a little St. Francis tradition tomorrow. From 7 to 9 p.m. up in the Vista Room, we've got Ghost Stories with Dr. Weixel. He's going to be telling ghost stories and paranormal stories based in this region. It's always a good time. There's free refreshments, cookies, that sort of thing. It's co-sponsored by the School of Business and by the Literary Club here on campus. I'll be there hanging out the whole time. Would love to see you up there. It's really a good time. We decorate and make it a lot of fun. But we're going to start off with a little bit of news before we get back into ethics. Has anybody among you tried the Popeyes chicken sandwich? What did you think? How would you compare it to Chick-fil-A? You like Chick-fil-A better? Well, here's something that's very interesting. We're going to show you the ad, but why is November 3rd a significant day to release this chicken sandwich? Yes? Oh, that's good. You're so close, but it's not for that reason. What day of the week is November 3rd? It's a Sunday. And so that's the impetus of this successful. They sold out of their first run in a matter of a few days. So I think that Chick-fil-A, even if these aren't as good as Chick-fil-A, they've got a competitor. So guys, we left off talking a little bit about ethics. We're actually talking a lot about ethics. In your own words, guys, what is ethics? Yeah, it's our belief system. Specifically, our belief in, what is ethics? Our belief in what? What do you think? I'll give you a hint. An R and a W. Right and wrong. Absolutely correct. We have a couple of ways that we can have compliance-based, or we can have what we refer to as integrity-based ethics code. If you have ever faced a hand to the back of your head from your mom, or been yelled at by your mom, don't do that, it's wrong, you have been subjected to a compliance-based ethics code. Either you do what you're supposed to do, or there will be punishment, there will be consequences. That's opposed to an integrity-based ethics code, in which we're telling people, please do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. Guys, ultimately, which has a deeper effect on the individual? Compliance for most people probably does, because it's quantifiable. Companies that go for an integrity-based ethics code are looking for deeper commitment from their employees. Let's think about this, for example. If we have McDonald's, who says basically we have a choice of two ethics codes. We can either go with punishing people when they do wrong or encouraging them to do good. Which is going to work better for McDonald's? Talk about food service, yes. I think ultimately that would be awesome in the ideal. I think that really a compliance-based ethics code will probably be better because we're talking about a high turnover position. We're talking about people who come in and oftentimes have come from varying walks of life. We're also talking about people's food that we have to keep safe here. Now, if we're talking about something a little more complicated, we're talking about companies like tech companies, like Amazon, for example. Integrity-based ethics codes sometimes are a bigger deal. What is Amazon's most intense thing in terms of information they protect? What is the most important thing that goes into Amazon? You got it. Personal information. Write this down. PIN. Personally identifiable, or PII rather. Personally identifiable information. We're talking social security numbers. We're talking about your home address. Guys, when something shows up at your house with a pre-approved credit card, what should you do with that if you don't want the credit card? Should you throw it in the trash?
You should cut it or shred it.
Shred it up, because people can put that stuff back together. But that's why big companies have what we refer to as integrity-based ethics codes. Guys, I think it's worse if you have a code that you don't enforce than having a code that you, let me rephrase that. I think it's worse to have a code that you don't enforce than to not have a code at all. Why do I think that? Why is that worse? I think it's worse to have a code on paper that you don't enforce, to have rules, than to not have rules at all. Why do I think that's worse? Yes?
Because if they think they can get away with it, they're going to do it way more.
Exactly right. You're what they call a paper tiger. If you don't have an ethics code, at least you don't have an expectation of any kind of ethics. If you have a written code and every time somebody files a complaint with it, you do nothing, your code isn't worth the paper it's printed on. So if you're going to have an ethics code, you've got to have some way of backing it up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this other than to say The difference between compliance and integrity-based ethics codes is compliance is do these things, follow these rules, or there will be consequences. Integrity-based ethics codes are saying try to do the right thing for the sake of the right thing because we want you to be a better person. We want you to bring an ethical person into the company. And we start thinking about those things. It's very difficult, guys. We have certain things we all agree on and certain things we don't agree on. I want you to tell me when I name a subject if most people can agree or disagree on. All I want you, raising your hand is not saying you agree or disagree with the concept, but saying that most people can agree or disagree. Okay? Most people can agree on the concept. Well, most people agree that murder is wrong. Raise your hand if most people would agree with that. Yeah, most people would. How many people would say that most people would agree they want their kids to have a better life than they have? Yeah, anywhere you go in the world. How many people would agree that most people would agree that abortion is okay? Yeah, the numbers get smaller. That does not necessarily reflect your personal view, but it's saying some issues are more complicated than others when it comes to ethics. And so universal ethics is tough. Even when we get into things like standards of cleanliness, if you go to different parts of the world, for example, it may not be a requirement to wash your hands before cooking food. If you're McDonald's and you're operating in a country where the social norm is to not wash your hands before preparing food, in addition to the idea that Americans might not want to eat there, what other issues might you run into? People aren't washing their hands when they're cooking food. Yes?
Spread of like diseases and sickness.
You got it, man. And so sometimes we need compliance-based ethics codes, even if they violate local norms. Here's something that you may not know, guys. In the 1800s, before we had an American Medical Association, if you needed health care, if you needed a tooth pulled, if you needed stitches, where did you go if you didn't have somebody in your house who could do it? You went to the barber shop. I'm not kidding, guys. The barber did absolutely everything. People who were doing surgery back at this point, the early surgeons, felt it was insulting to ask them to wash their hands before performing an operation. So literally, the people who were opening people up and reaching in and taking out things, tumors, or other kinds of medical things that they were dealing with, were not washing their hands because we did not believe in microbes. We did not believe in microorganisms. That's why we have standards in this day and age to ensure that people are acting the right way. Guys, in terms of how we fix our ethical problems, we talked about VW last time, Volkswagen being a big ethical problem. Can anybody else think of a company in the United States or globally who's messed up, who's done something wrong? Because there's plenty of mistakes. We covered a couple of them last Wednesday, but can anybody tell me a company that's done something wrong? Please.
Facebook.
That's a great example. What's Facebook done wrong? You've got so many things to choose from.
Yeah. Well, the one I know about is I think they sold people's personal information to ad companies, and I think that's what they did or something like that. They just weren't being super secure with people's personal information.
And they've done it repeatedly. For example, Facebook has automatically enabled facial recognition on their profiles at different times so people can be automatically tagged. Facebook has sold information to third parties. I know most of you probably don't use Facebook as your primary social network. By show of hands, who here uses Instagram as their primary social network? Okay, most of you do. Do you know who owns Instagram? Yeah, exactly right. So here's the other trick, guys. Has anybody ever done the tab test on a browser, on the web browser, where you open Facebook in one tab and search for a product in another tab? Raise your hand if you've done that. How long does it take for the products to start showing up in Facebook?
I didn't do it on purpose, but it showed up, so I figured out it was happened several times. So just a matter of a couple of minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly those algorithms work. And here's the other thing, guys. When we start talking about how companies are using our information right now, we do not, in the United States, it's different for our friends in Europe, we do not, in the United States, have an Internet Bill of Rights. Meaning, by going onto a website, you are basically permitting to have your data gathered because we have no actual laws that are specifically protecting us. Now, you may see, for example, have you seen the pop-ups that come up and say, for example, our site uses cookies by clicking accept, you're granting us permission. Even if you don't click accept, there's nothing legally to stop them from putting a cookie on your web browser. So it's a big issue, guys. And the big issue is right now the tech companies in many ways, are ahead of the law. So check it out, guys. In terms of how we're going to improve this ethics, it has to start at the top. By show of hands, how many of you have ever seen Mark Zuckerberg in an interview? By show of hands, how many of you trust Mark Zuckerberg? Yeah, he seems like he's trying so hard to convince you he's a human being. He is trying so hard to convince you that he cares, but I don't really think he does. So the top people in a company have to actually care. The people who work for that company have to believe that the company actually cares about ethics. And finally, the people working on the line have to also believe in those ethics, or at least comply with them and be trained how to make ethical decisions. We start talking, for example, bigger companies even have ethics offices. If you're a small company like St. Francis University, a small university, it's probably run out of, for example, our HR department handles most of our ethical issues. But we also want to make sure our suppliers are also complying with this. If you're Walmart, you remember a few weeks ago we did the discussion posting about cell phones and where components for cell phones were coming from. Where was that cobalt being mined? You remember? It was a developing country. Developing continent, I should say. It was Africa. So let's say, for example, if you discover that your suppliers are abusing people, does that fit with your ethics code? Guys, if we think about, I'm asking you to raise your hands a lot today because we're trying to get moving on a Monday. How many of you, in honor of Halloween, or any time here, how many of you love chocolate? Oh, I love chocolate. I can't believe there's people that put their hand up for chocolate. I'm very pro-chocolate. I'm very pro-gluten, too. I love gluten. I know a lot of people aren't big on gluten these days. I hate hummus. Like, are there hummus fans in here? You guys like hummus? You know why I won't eat hummus? It's the name. Like the name. And this is my wife yells at me all the time. It's like, it sounds like it's made out of wax or something. Like, I don't want to eat hummus. I want steak or fried chicken with Doritos. I don't want hummus. Hummus sounds bad to me. If you like hummus, I hope I didn't offend you. But where I'm going with all of this stuff is, most people do like chocolate. And many parts of the world, do you guys know who harvests cocoa? Do you know?
Is it countries in like South America?
And who are they using to harvest it?
Little kids probably.
Yeah, a lot of forced labor supports the chocolate industry throughout the United States and the world. So when we get these wonderful treats at Halloween and Christmas time, oftentimes those were done basically by slave labor. So if you're Hershey's or if you're Nestle, you want to make sure your supply chain is using responsibly sourced materials, for example. And the bottom line is you got to enforce your ethics code. There's got to be blowback if somebody does something wrong. Guys, we start talking about people who alert other people that something's going wrong. We have a title for this, folks. What do we call it? Give you a hint. One of the words is on my slide up there. Whistleblowers. People who blow the whistle. People who are willing to say, hey, something is going wrong here. We need to fix it. If you're deciding that you want to be that person, make sure facts are on your side, number one. Make sure that you are going to the right person. Here's the trick, guys. It can be very challenging. Let's say, for example, and this would never happen because I have a great relationship, my boss is Dr. Fry. Let's say Dr. Fry were my problem. If he's the person who's causing me problems, where can I report my problem to if my boss is the problem? Where would I go? Any ideas? Yes. Yeah, I would go up the chain. I would go to his boss. I would go to HR. There maybe even is an 800 line for me to call to report it. So you've got to basically file your allegations. You've got to make sure that you're processing this information. You guys probably know about the idea of mandated reporters. For example, if a student shows up in my office and I have reason to believe they've been sexually assaulted or harassed, I'm legally required to report that incident. So we have processes in place. When you're choosing to blow the whistle, though, you got to make sure the facts are on your side. And whistleblowers sometimes are people who pay the ultimate price. This is a lady whose last name is Silkwood. I'm going to show you a brief clip about what her life was all about. She basically was somebody who blew the whistle on the nuclear industry in the United States. And this was back in the 1970s. And she ultimately was probably killed by the company that was trying to keep her quiet about some of the way that the nuclear waste was leaking out into the greater community. You guys, by the way, do you realize you're living right now within about 2.5 hours of the greatest atomic accident in the history of the United States? What am I talking about? 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island in the late 1970s had a problem with a cooling system in one of the nuclear reactors and almost melted down. We had a cloud of radioactive smoke that was released. I mean, it could have been something akin to an explosion like Hiroshima or Nagasaki during World War II if things had gone as poorly as they could have. But I digress. I'm going to show you a brief video about sometimes why people don't try to silence Karen Silkwood, but they paid over $1 million to make the case go away. What are your thoughts, guys? Why would a company choose to do that? Is that an admission of guilt? Yes.
Yeah, that's out of guilt.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we get into like civil lawsuits, it's the idea of somebody saying, hey, well, we're not going to admit we did this, but here's some money to go away. I think in some ways that's very often an admission of guilt here. And people like Silkwood were actually the folks who are a big part of the reason why we have the whistleblower laws and the protection we enjoy today. Guys, if you had to think about the industries that affect us now in terms of things that can do us actual harm, I mean, we're talking about the nuclear industry here. That's quite literally physical harm. What do you guys think are the industries that would cause you concern in terms of the ways they can affect us in the future? What are the industries you think that we should be concerned about? Oh, yeah. Yes.
I guess you'd say utility companies, making sure we get clean water.
So actual environmental regulation, that's a big issue these days, considering, we're facing all these issues with climate change and everything else. What else do you think is going to affect you? Yes?
I think internet security companies.
I couldn't agree more on that one, too. Who here remembers the company I was talking about last week, Equifax? Check this out, guys. The one thing Equifax was supposed to protect was your personal information. And the one thing they couldn't protect was our personal information. Who else should we be concerned about? Is there any other kinds of companies you guys think might be affecting our futures? Yes?
Maybe like food companies, maybe even not under like illegal substances or like stuff that's dangerous.
It's really, that's an excellent point, because we're also talking now, for example, it's all factory farms in most parts of the world. It used to be in the early 20th century up till the mid-20th century, most of our food came from local suppliers. If you go to McDonald's, for example, now and get a hamburger that's got a slice of lettuce on it, that probably didn't come from someplace local. It was probably shipped in through a supply chain. So food safety is a huge issue these days. Anything else you guys think we should be concerned about? Yes? Oh, tell me more. Yeah, I mean, I think the very fact we're taking more and more decisions out of the hands of human beings and putting them into the hands of machines says in the future that we may ultimately be trusting a lot of our fate to things that are not human beings. That keeps me up a little bit at night, too. Is anybody here, I know I'm probably more of a nerd than anybody in this room, but is anybody a fan of the Terminator movies? Okay, what caused the apocalypse in the Terminator movies?
Probably the ones I haven't seen so long now.
Oh, it's okay. It's Skynet. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what happens with Skynet?
It like malfunctions and then the machines attack.
That's a good analysis. Basically, Skynet is this worldwide defense network, and we as human beings quit trusting our own defense to ourselves and determine that machines know better, and within 30 minutes of turning on Skynet, it decides that human beings are the problem and starts eliminating human beings. Although it's kind of funny. Anybody here from the local area? If you notice Channel 10, their weather service is called Skynet. It's always a little creepy to me, like Joe Murgo's hanging out with cyborgs or something. It's kind of strange. But I digress. We're going to keep moving today, guys. Guys, corporate social responsibility is something where we basically believe that most companies believe that we have a responsibility to treat people well, to be good to the environment, to make sure that we're hiring people in ways that are fair and that we're serving people in a good way. Now, corporate social responsibility is broken down in a couple of different ways, though. These are very different, guys. Corporate philanthropy simply means you got a company, you like the cause, you're going to give money toward it. For example, Apple gives a lot of money to marriage equality kinds of causes because Tim Cook The CEO of Apple is gay, and so he believes that's an important cause for his company. Corporate social initiatives means basically if a company's good at something, maybe we'll go out and help somebody else do it. For example, if you were a company that was really good at technology, like Facebook or Google, maybe you're going to go out and try to wire particular areas for internet access for underserved populations, for example. Corporate responsibility means that you are responsible to do the right thing. In other words, there are products that have hurt people over the years because they weren't safe. I'm going to be showing you some products that were actually sold to children in previous decades. You're not going to believe them. And finally, corporate policy means what kind of stance are we taking on social issues. Corporate policy, for example, in the 1960s, this would have been considered to be a very visionary corporate policy in the United States in the late 50s, early 60s, that we were going to hire people regardless of their skin color or where they come from, because that was not commonplace till after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. These days, hiring people with disabilities, for example, might be an example of good corporate policy. So here's some examples of corporate responsibility. If you got Subaru, for example, they claim that they have 0 landfill factories. They reuse everything. Trader Joe's uses free-range organic chicken, for example. And if you've been to a hotel, the little signs are telling us, if you don't want to have new towels tomorrow, reuse your towels for a couple of days. Tons of charities out there doing good work. We're not going to cover them here. Although I will tell you guys something. When you donate to a charity, by show of hands, does anybody here have a charity that they have a particular affection? Is there a particular charity you like to donate to? As you get older, you probably, well, who's your charity?
It's Oxfam. I don't know if you.
I have heard of them. Yeah, it's a really great relief agency trying to eliminate world hunger.
Yes.
Yeah, great charity. Anybody else have a charity they believe in? I donate every year to the home nursing agency Healing Patch, because I believe in the work they do for grieving children, for example. Look under the hood, guys. Ask where your money is going. And here's, for example, if we look at these charities, United Way, 86% of the money they bring in goes back out to services. Goodwill, 88% goes back out to services. There was a company, when I say this, if you donate to this company, I'm not telling you not to, I'm telling you to look under the hood. Who here has ever heard of the Susan B. Komen Foundation? Yeah, what was the big scandal involving that company?
So basically, they took more money than they were supposed to.
They were taking, most of the money was going into what they referred to as overhead, and a very small donation was going actually to the charity. We've seen that with lots of charities over there, companies that really aren't charities that are making money for a lot of people and not for the cause. So look under the hood before you donate. So some of the other things too, guys, if you work for a good company, they may give you time off to do good things. I'll give you a great example. Tomorrow, a group of students and I are heading to FCI Loretto, going to jail tomorrow. Finally happened. I'm finally going to jail. And we're going to be, it took a while, they caught me, but we're going to be teaching job skills to people who are going to be getting out of prison soon. And so that's an example of how St. Francis allows me to spend some of my time to get out into the greater community. By the way, if that kind of stuff sounds interesting to you, we're always looking for more volunteers, so hit me up. It's called the You Work Project, and we're going to do some very good things. There are very generous people in the world as well. Warren Buffett beats out Bill Gates by a little bit, but Bill Gates, he basically said he made the first part of his life about making as much money as he could, and he's making the second part of his life all about giving it all away. So sometimes people who make big money also, in the end up being very big philanthropists too. So, as President Kennedy said in the early 1960s, that you have these basic rights when it comes to being a consumer. You have the right to expect that the products you buy are going to be safe, or at least safe when used as directed. You have the right to know what goes in your stuff. You have the right to know, does this product have GMOs in it? Does this product have cancer-causing agents in it? You have the right to choose. We don't want monopolies. And the right to be heard. If there's a problem with something you buy, you have every right to be able to ask somebody for help on resolving the issue. This stuff has been put into place because of a lot of unsafe products we've done over the years. For example, if you want to know why child safety seats have a standard, it's so that when there's a crash involved and a child is in a safety seat, that child has a high likelihood of survival. We recall products when they're not working well, they're unsafe. And hopefully, we can eliminate unsafe products from the market. The next couple of slides, I'm going to show you some stuff that actually made it onto the market. Guys, these are real products. You may have seen some of these, you may not have. Has anybody ever seen the product up here to my right? What are these called? Can you tell me how lawn darts work? Well, the way it works, if we were playing a game of jarts, they called them jarts back in the day. These objects weigh about 5 to 10 pounds. They're made of metal and they have sharp edges on them. If we were playing this game, we'd put a plastic ring on either side of us and we would throw these up in the air. Now, if you think about the heft of these things, with a little bit of heft, you can get them 30 or 40 feet in the air. So you've got a pointed metal projectile that weighs about 5 to 10 pounds coming 40 feet out of the air at the ground. What could possibly go wrong with this picture? Can anybody guess what might have happened? A few impaled feet and cracked skulls later, and somebody said maybe we shouldn't be putting these things on the market. This is one of my favorite Cabbage Patch Kids. These Cabbage Patch dolls, however, had metal gears in the mouth, and when you fed them fake food, they would eat the food. What else did these dolls occasionally eat? And hair and everything else. It's like watching Bride of Chucky or something. This doll is eating children. You know, the people are pulling these dolls off their kids. This is the Chevy Corvair. It's a classic car. It was also the subject of a book called Unsafe at Any Speed. Has anybody ever seen the Chevy Corvair? Do you know what's special about this car? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. It's a lot like the original Volkswagen. What was unusual about the bug? The engine is in the back. What would happen with this car when you got up to about 60 or 70 miles an hour? Between the engine being in the back and the way that the fins were designed here, the car would actually lift up off the ground. The back of the car would lift up off the ground. The wheels would fold under it, and you would lose any ability to control the car whatsoever. Ralph Nader wrote a book about it called Unsafe at Any Speed. Has anybody ever seen one of these things? That's a pull tab off beer and soft drink containers. What would often happen with these things, they would break off and part of the metal would go into the drink and people would end up ingesting metal. It was very unsafe. And if you're a Star Wars fan, this is legendary. This is the original Boba Fett action figure. To get this figure in 1980, when it came out, when Empire Strikes Back came out, you had to buy 5 action figures, cut off some codes and mail them, and 6 to 8 weeks later you got an action figure. Well, the first version of this had a rocket in the back, which was spring-loaded. What did most little kids want to do with that rocket? Any idea? It's a choking hazard. You could shoot it right down their own throats. So that product was pulled from the market before it could actually ever be sold. It gets better, though. The product that shoots fire over here is the Austin Magic pistol, which was sold and marketed to 5 to 8-year-olds during the 1950s. And this literally is an atomic energy lab. In the 1950s, you could order radioactive isotopes through the United States mail and experiment with atomic energy in your own home. These products were marketed to children. Could you imagine this today if you're buying atomic isotopes through the U.S. mail or giving kids a flamethrower? How crazy is this stuff, guys? So that's why we pulled this stuff from the market. But I'm going to stop for a second because we've been going a good long way here. So I would like to stop to take my first question or comment of the day. And no, I did not have a flamethrower, but I did have lawn darts as a kid. We didn't die. Questions or comments? I would love a question or comment from each side of the room today. What would you like to ask? I'm dying to know. Help me out, guys. Come on. I had an okay weekend. You know what I did most of the weekend? I worked this weekend. Did you have a good weekend? What did you do this weekend? So you had a pretty solid weekend? We need a question or comment from this side. Help me out, guys. I never hear from the back of the room. Like these 3 rows back. Will somebody ask me a question from the back? I know you're dying to ask me a question. What would you like to ask? Ask me a question, guys. Help me out. As they say, hook a brother up. Come on. Come on, guys. Seriously, ask me something. Felix or Pete, you guys have to have a question. You two are the smartest guys I know. You have to have a question about something. What would you like to ask this morning?
What's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport is probably football, American football. But I have a lot of respect for European or /world football as well. I'd say American football. That's what I was brought up on. What about you? Other than your sport of choice, what's your favorite sport to watch? Freestyle, nice. That's very creative stuff. You guys this morning, we are going to keep on moving, guys, but we got another 10 minutes to get through together. We're going to go at a pretty good clip here, guys. We have a responsibility to our customers of companies, and all these companies want to promote all this wonderful stuff they're doing with CSR. What's Subaru's big slogan, by the way? What is it? Come on, you guys have seen the commercials. What is it? It starts with a heart. Hearts symbolize it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru. That's their big slogan. Or McDonald's slogan, I'm loving it. We love to put the word love into corporate slogans. So we use social media, we use advertising, we use all these different ways to let people know about what we're up to because it looks good for companies, guys. But the flip side of it is, if you're going to promote this stuff, you had better actually be living up to your expectations, particularly if you're using social media. Social media is wonderful because we can reach people very quickly. We can do lots of good things with social media. How is social media a problem for companies? What do you think? How can social media be problematic for companies? Gabby, what do you think? How can social media be challenging for companies?
They constantly have to keep up with what their consumers want and advertising.
It's exactly correct. It's frequent, guys. If you send a company a message on social media, how quickly do you expect a response? I'm sorry?
Never.
Oh, really? So you've had bad experiences with companies?
No, but like I just don't think.
I'd counter that point and say I've actually got some pretty good responses. In fact, it's funny you mentioned Subaru. It's okay. That's what we're talking about. So I had a very bad experience owning a Subaru. For example, one of the few people I know who absolutely will never buy another Subaru after I own one. When I started tagging Subaru in a couple of posts saying, please resolve my issue, they actually did get back to me. They actually did contact me. Regionally, we have a company that's very busy on social media. Their color is red. Who am I thinking of? Who's a company that's very busy on social media? Maybe it's a company that you would visit at 3 in the morning. Yeah, Sheetz is huge on social media. If you want to know why so many people will get on social media and tag Sheetz with their terrible sandwich with too much mayonnaise or whatever, it's because Sheetz will respond very quickly and they'll give people free coupons for all kinds of stuff. Social media is no joke. You've got to be engaged. The things that you don't want to do before you get on social media, you don't want to start fights with people. You don't want to tweet impulsively. Some other people in our country ought to follow that message sometimes. We want to keep people on message. We want to keep them on point. We also want to make sure that we're engaging customers. Marketing 101 stuff. A lot of companies make mistakes, for example, in terms of some of their tweets. Here's an example of how some companies have messed up on social media. Anybody here's kids like SpaghettiOs? SpaghettiOs were the greatest. Well, check it out. SpaghettiOs, Franco-American, thought it was a great idea to take a moment to remember Pearl Harbor using a cartoon SpaghettiO, which turned into a meme pretty quickly when people started moving, I can't see him, unfortunately, started moving him into all kinds of historically inaccurate settings. Then we had the NRA. And when I say this, I'm not slamming the NRA. If you're a gun enthusiast, more power to you. They happened to put this tweet out the same day of the Aurora shooting, the day the Dark Knight Rises came out in theaters, and a gunman went into a theater and killed 12 people. Then we had somebody who took over KitchenAid's Twitter page. KitchenAid makes kitchen supplies and somehow turned it into a political rant. Obama's grandma knew it was going to be bad. She died 3 days before he became president and was referring to the death of the president's grandmother. So somebody at KitchenAid took over their Twitter page and used it for political points. And then we had during Hurricane Sandy, which was pummeling the United States, what the hell, why not buy some stuff? Let's have a sale. What's wrong with this one, guys? What's wrong with promoting a sale while people are losing billions of dollars of real estate? Any ideas? Tough crowd day. What do you think, guys? What's wrong with that? Yes?
People are losing everything they have, but this company thinks that they still have more money left to spend.
Exactly right. I mean, I'm going to cringe when I get old enough when they had the first 9/11 sales. And that's exactly this kind of stuff. And that's what we need to think about our social media. So, guys, before we move on, though, social media is one of these things. I think that you guys are in a unique situation in terms of facing challenges with it. What advantage might I have in my professional life versus you guys because of social media? What do you think? Grant, I'm sorry. Believe me, I did plenty of stupid stuff, but thank God none of it was documented. I mean, when I think about the dumbest things I've ever done, I won't share the dumbest things I've done in this forum, but I have done some really dumb stuff in my life, but it wasn't instantly live bloggable. It wasn't instantly on somebody else's Twitter feed. It wasn't instantly on somebody's Snapchat. I think you guys are facing a very unique challenge. How do you offset that, guys, by the way? If you did make some mistakes and end up with some stupid stuff on social media, is there anything you can do about it? Yes? Not really. And the only thing I can tell you that is a way to make mastery of that is to get more good content out there about yourself. Does anybody, by show of hands, has anybody here ever used Google on their own name? Have you ever Googled yourself? I encourage you to do so. And here's the trick. You can actually set up an alert where anytime something new shows up on Google with your name, it'll alert you so you can check it out. It's good to know what people are talking about with you. Here's the other trick, too. Google's algorithm doesn't always bring up the worst parts about you immediately. It brings up the parts that are most relevant, most timely, most interesting to people. So if you're able to put more good stuff out there than bad, you can offset any mistakes you've made. In Europe, however, there's the right to be forgotten. People in Europe can have stuff taken off of Google. We don't enjoy that right here in the United States. Very briefly, before we wrap for today, guys, insider trading simply means that if you work for a stockbroker and you know that a company is going public and you're telling people to get onto a particular stock or to stay away from a stock based on insider information you know, you could be involved in insider trading. Generally speaking, if you work for a publicly traded company, you should not be giving stock tips about that company to people in your family. People have done it all the time. For example, Martha Stewart, who is a big home improvement guru from the early 2000s, had somebody who was an insider on a biotech firm tell her where to invest back in 2004 was what ultimately put her in jail. And again, insider trading sometimes is also people trying to get out. The Enron scandal, for example, we talked about last week, is all about insider trading. So, guys, that's a good place for us to stop for today. We're going to pick it up on Wednesday. Have a wonderful, wonderful morning.